AITA for banning my son's fiancée from family dinners due to her disrespectful behavior towards our culture's food. I, 54F, have always prided myself on being an open and accepting person, especially when it comes to family. My husband and I have raised our children to respect others, their cultures, and their backgrounds. So, when my son Luke, 28M, introduced us to his fiancée Anna, 26F, I was thrilled to meet her. I knew she came from a different cultural background, and I was eager to welcome her into our family. However, things have not gone as smoothly as I had hoped. We often have family dinners, and as part of our tradition, I cook the dishes that I grew up eating, authentic, traditional recipes that have been passed down through generations. These meals are important to me. They represent not just our culture, but our family's history and values. The first time Luke brought Anna over for dinner, I was excited to see them. I had prepared a feast, dishes I thought everyone would enjoy. But the moment Anna saw the food, she recoiled. She didn't touch a single dish, not even to try it. Instead, she sat there, making faces of disgust, whispering to Luke that the food looked weird and gross. I was stunned. I could feel the tension building around the table. My husband, my other children, even my elderly mother noticed the way Anna was behaving. It felt like a slap in the face. I tried to remain calm and asked her if she was okay, if perhaps there was something specific she didn't like. But before Anna could respond, Luke jumped in, quickly saying, "She's just a picky eater, Mom. Don't worry about it." I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, but it was hard to ignore the way she turned up her nose at our food. It felt deeply disrespectful. Still, I let it go, hoping it was just nerves or a misunderstanding. The second time Anna joined us for dinner, the same thing happened. She didn't eat anything, and she kept making comments to Luke about how unappetizing the food looked. Again, I tried to engage her, suggesting she try just a small portion, but she refused, looking at me like I had offered her something poisonous. The rest of the family was clearly uncomfortable, and I could see the hurt in my mother's eyes. This was her favorite dish that Anna was turning her nose up at. The third dinner was the final straw. Anna's behavior was the same, if not worse. She not only refused to eat but also made a loud comment about how she couldn't believe people actually eat this stuff. The entire table fell silent. My husband looked at me, clearly furious, but neither of us wanted to cause a scene in front of everyone. I asked Luke to step into the kitchen with me and confronted him about Anna's behavior. I told him that I was deeply offended by how she was treating our food, and by extension, our culture. Luke defended her again, saying that she was just a picky eater and that I was making too much of it. I told him that being a picky eater is one thing, but openly mocking and disrespecting someone's food is another. It wasn't just about her not eating, it was about the faces, the comments, the blatant disrespect she was showing. After that dinner, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. We were planning another family dinner for Friday, and I made the difficult decision not to invite Anna. I told Luke that until she could show some respect for our culture and the food we eat, she was not welcome at family dinners. This decision did not go over well with Luke. He accused me of being unwelcoming and close-minded, and we had a huge argument. He said I was judging Anna too harshly and not giving her a chance. I tried to explain that I had given her multiple chances, and each time she had shown nothing but contempt for our traditions. I even told him that I felt her behavior was borderline racist, which caused him to explode at me. He shouted that I was out of line and that I was the one being discriminatory by not accepting her as she is. The argument escalated to the point where Luke stormed out of the house, saying that if Anna wasn't welcome at family dinners, then he wouldn't come either. I was heartbroken, but I stood my ground. I didn't feel like I could let this go on any longer without addressing it. A few days later, Luke came by to talk, but it wasn't to reconcile. Instead, he told me that he and Anna were planning their wedding and that Anna had made it clear she didn't want anyone from our family to be invited. I was speechless. Luke explained that Anna felt uncomfortable around us and didn't think we would accept her, so she thought it would be better if we weren't at the wedding. At that moment, it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. My son, my own flesh and blood, was telling me that his fiancée didn't want us at their wedding because she felt we wouldn't accept her? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him if this was really what he wanted, to get married without his family there, and he just shrugged. He said that he loved Anna and that if this was what would make her happy, then he was willing to go along with it. I was devastated. I tried to reason with him, to get him to see that cutting his family out of his life was a huge mistake, but he wouldn't listen. He was completely under Anna's influence, and it was clear that nothing I said would change his mind. As the wedding day approached, the rift between us grew wider. Luke stopped coming to family events altogether, and whenever we did talk, it was tense and strained. I felt like I was losing my son, and there was nothing I could do about it. My husband was furious, my other children were hurt, and my mother was heartbroken. Our family was falling apart, and it was all because of this woman who couldn't even show a shred of respect for our culture. The final blow came when Luke sent out the wedding invitations. As expected, we didn't receive one. My son was getting married, and I wasn't going to be there to see it. I cried for days, feeling like I had lost him forever. My husband tried to comfort me, saying that Luke would come to his senses eventually, but I wasn't so sure. Anna had her claws in him deep, and I didn't know if we'd ever get him back. The day of the wedding came and went. We didn't hear from Luke at all. It was like we didn't exist anymore. I spent the day in a daze, trying to keep myself busy to avoid thinking about what I was missing. But it was impossible. My heart was broken, and I didn't know if it would ever heal. A week after the wedding, Luke finally called me. He sounded distant, almost cold, as he told me that he and Anna were planning to move out of state again. He said they needed a fresh start, away from all the drama. I could barely speak. I knew this was Anna's doing, isolating him from his family, but I couldn't find the words to stop him. I told him I loved him and that I hoped he would be happy, but inside I was screaming. Since then, I've barely heard from Luke. He sends the occasional text, but it's always brief, and he never mentions Anna. I'm still trying to come to terms with everything that's happened. I've lost my son to a woman who couldn't even show basic respect for our culture, and I don't know if I'll ever get him back. So, Reddit, AITA for banning Anna from family dinners? Was I too harsh, or was I right to stand up for my culture and my family? I never wanted things to turn out this way, but I don't know what else I could have done. Update 1. It's been a few months since Luke's wedding, and the pain of being excluded still lingers. I've tried my best to move on, but there's this constant ache in my chest that I can't seem to shake. My husband tells me to give it time, that Luke will come around eventually, but I'm not so sure. Every day that goes by without hearing from him feels like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. My other children have been a great support, but I can see the strain this has put on them too. They're angry with Luke for abandoning the family and hurt that they were also excluded from the wedding. We've always been a close-knit family, and this rift has affected everyone deeply. Even my mother, who is normally a pillar of strength, has been struggling. She keeps saying she doesn't understand how someone could just turn their back on their family like that. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from Luke. My heart leapt when I saw his name on the caller ID.
For a split second, I thought maybe he was calling to make amends, to finally bridge the gap between us.
But the reality was far different. Luke's voice was flat, almost robotic, as he told me that he and Anna were expecting a baby. He dropped the news casually, like it was just another piece of information. My emotions were all over the place: shock, confusion, anger, and a deep, overwhelming sadness. Here he was, my son, telling me I was going to be a grandmother, but it felt like he was telling a stranger. I tried to muster up some excitement, congratulating him and asking about the pregnancy. But then he hit me with another bombshell. He and Anna had decided that they didn't want any involvement from our side of the family. Anna had apparently made it clear that she didn't feel comfortable having us around their child, and Luke was going along with it. I was speechless. My mind was racing, trying to comprehend what he was saying. How could he shut us out like this? How could he deny his child the love and support of their grandparents, aunts, and uncles? It felt like Anna was systematically erasing us from his life, and Luke was letting it happen without a second thought. I asked him why he was doing this, why he was allowing Anna to isolate him from his family. His response broke my heart. He said, "Mom, you made your choice when you decided to exclude Anna. This is what she wants, and I'm going to respect her wishes." I wanted to scream at him, to tell him how wrong he was, how unfair this all was. But I didn't. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, and I knew if I said anything more, I would break down completely. So I just told him that I loved him and that I hoped he would reconsider. Then I hung up the phone and cried harder than I had in years. The news spread quickly through the family, and everyone was devastated. My husband was furious, but even he didn't know what to do. My other children were heartbroken, and I could see the anger in their eyes. They felt betrayed, and I didn't blame them. My mother didn't say much, but I could see the sorrow etched on her face. It was as if she had lost a part of herself. The next few weeks were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about the baby, about the fact that we wouldn't be a part of its life. I kept imagining what it would be like to hold my grandchild, to see them grow, and to be a part of their world. But all of those dreams were slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried reaching out to Luke a few more times, hoping that he would change his mind. I sent him messages, trying to explain how much this was hurting us, how much we wanted to be a part of his and Anna's life. But his responses were always the same: short, curt, and devoid of any emotion. It was like talking to a stranger. One day, I received a package in the mail. It was from Luke and Anna. Inside, there was a small box with a note that simply read, "This is for you. Don't contact us again." My hands were shaking as I opened the box, and when I saw what was inside, my heart shattered into a million pieces. It was a sonogram photo. Their baby, my grandchild, and this was their way of telling me to stay out of their lives. It felt like a cruel joke, a final nail in the coffin. I couldn't breathe. The pain was so intense, it was like a physical blow. I showed the photo to my husband, and for the first time in years, I saw tears in his eyes. He was always the strong one, the one who held us all together. But this was too much, even for him. We sat there, holding each other, feeling the weight of our son's rejection. Update 2. Months passed, and the situation with Luke and Anna only seemed to get worse. My attempts to reach out were met with silence or cold responses. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, constantly replaying every interaction in my head, wondering where things had gone so wrong. The distance between us and Luke grew wider with each passing day, and it felt like he was slipping away for good. One day, out of sheer desperation, I decided to visit Luke and Anna's home unannounced. I knew it was risky, and I wasn't sure how they would react, but I couldn't bear the thought of being cut out of their lives completely without at least trying to see them in person one last time. When I arrived, I was met with a frosty reception. Anna answered the door, her expression unreadable. She didn't invite me in, just stood there with the door partially open, as if she was blocking me from entering their world. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding in my chest. "Anna, please, I just want to talk," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me with a mixture of disdain and impatience. "There's nothing to talk about. You've made it clear how you feel, and so have we." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced them back. "I don't understand why you're doing this. We've always been a family. Why are you trying to tear us apart?" Anna's expression hardened. "You think this is all my fault? That I'm the one tearing your family apart? Maybe you should take a look at how you treated me from the start. You never accepted me, never made me feel welcome." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. "That's not true. I tried to welcome you, but..." "But what?" Anna interrupted, her voice rising. "But I didn't eat your precious food? Is that what this is all about? Because I didn't like your cooking, I'm the villain? You think I don't know what you really think of me? That you see me as an outsider, someone who doesn't belong in your perfect little family?" I was stunned. I had never thought of Anna that way, but hearing her say it made me realize just how deep the rift had become. "Anna, I never wanted to make you feel unwelcome. I just didn't understand why you couldn't at least try to be part of our traditions." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Your traditions? You mean the ones you expect everyone to follow without question? Maybe I don't want to be part of a family that judges me for being different. Maybe I don't want my child to be raised around people who can't even respect our choices." Her words stung, but I could see that trying to argue with her would only make things worse. "Anna, please, let's find a way to work through this. I don't want to lose my son, or my grandchild." Anna's expression softened slightly, but only for a moment. "It's too late for that. Luke and I have made our decision. We're going to raise our child our way, without interference. You need to accept that." Before I could say anything else, Luke appeared behind Anna, his face set in a hard, emotionless mask. "Mom, it's time for you to leave." His words were like a dagger to my heart. I looked at him, hoping to see some sign of the son I once knew, but all I saw was a stranger. I realized then that Anna wasn't the only one who had changed, Luke had too, and I didn't recognize him anymore. I nodded, feeling utterly defeated. "I love you, Luke. I hope one day you'll understand." He didn't respond, just stood there watching as I turned and walked away, the door closing behind me with a finality that left me feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. Final update. It's been over a year since that day at Luke and Anna's house, and the pain of losing my son and my grandchild still cuts deep. I've tried to move on, to find peace in the life I have without them, but it's been a struggle every day. My family has rallied around me, trying to fill the void, but nothing can replace the emptiness left by Luke's absence. I've come to realize that there's nothing more I can do. I've exhausted every option, every attempt to mend the broken relationship, but Luke and Anna have made their decision. They've chosen to build a life without us, and as much as it hurts, I have to accept that. My husband and I have focused on rebuilding our lives, finding joy in the things we still have. We've started traveling more, spending time with our other children and their families, and trying to create new memories that aren't overshadowed by the loss of Luke. There are days when I find myself longing for the relationship we once had, for the son who would come home for dinner, sit at our table, and share stories about his life. But those days are gone, and I have to let go of the hope that they'll ever return. I still send Luke messages from time to time, letting him know that we're here if he ever changes his mind, but I don't expect a response. I've come to terms with the fact that I may never see him or my grandchild, and it's a grief I've had to learn to live with. To anyone who might be reading this and going through something similar, I want to say this: hold on to the people you love, but know when it's time to let go. You can't force someone to be part of your life if they don't want to be, and sometimes the best thing you can do is accept their choice and find a way to move forward.